Hello, Michael Lewandowski here for Vlog 2. I'm going to talk a lot about informal learning in three different contexts here. So, Lucy Green wrote Music Informal Learning in the School and a New Classroom Pedagogy. And she was also the pioneer. She piloted the Musical Futures program in several different schools in the UK before Musical Futures became in the current way it is now. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about Free to Be Musical, the group Improvisation in Music. It's a book by several authors that have several examples of different things to try to get kids to be creative. So informal learning is when you put the learning in the student's hands. It is when strategies are developed by learners through learning. And musically, the argument is that in the classroom, it's been teacher-centered for so long, where the teachers are telling the kids what to do musically and choosing the examples for them, and the students are not connecting with them, and they're not engaged and motivated enough to get anything out of that type of content. So what informal learning does is it looks into what the students are doing on their own outside of school and tying that into what they're going to be doing in the school. Not completely and totally, but in order to get their input in it and their investment stake into it. So is it important to do? I believe so. I believe that it's important to use in the classroom. I mean, if you're going to get more motivation out of a student because they're choosing a song that they know rather than something that you're choosing, and you're going to keep them involved and give them that experience to get involved with stuff that they're not familiar with eventually, then yes, it's a great thing. So to start off with, most of the students that play music on their own at home, what do? They play the drum set, they play the guitar, they play the piano, and they're modeling what they're going after what they're hearing as far as pop culture, pop music, what they're hearing on the radio. I mean, and I remember going through school myself. I never participated in school music from grades kindergarten through 12th grade. I never had the opportunity. I don't know if it was a school budget or if I just, maybe at some point when I was in high school, I just felt like I'd already was too old to participate in school music. I already missed the boat on it. So I all my musical experiences up to high school were informal. I remember when I was a senior in high school, I always had an interest in being a percussionist and playing the drums. And so I did get a drum set by the time I was a senior in high school, and I put together with my friends, or my friends put together with me. I don't know how it happened, but little garage band in the and we listened to a boombox, and we played rock and roll songs, and we learned them just by hearing them. And we had guitar or bass and drums, and we did that until we played out. And no one told us to do that. No one said we had to do. We were motivated by wanting to learn it on our own. So I really understand this a great deal, and I was there. I mean, I never started learning how to read sheet music until I was in college. And the reason why I even got involved with that was because some collegiate professors, they heard me practicing, and they said, hey, get that guy in here. And they asked me to play. The jazz ensemble director comes up to me and asked me to play the drum set in the jazz ensemble, and I was honored to do it, but I told him I'd love to. I really want to learn as much as possible about music and how to play, but I told him I don't know how to read music. And he told me, join the band, listen to what's going on. You'll get the hang of it. Just I know you read one or two charts to start with. By the end of that experience, I worked with another drummer in that jazz band, but I learned by going through it, and started out in informal ways, and that informal ways led me to having a love for reading all music and all styles. Even when I was in this jazz band, I was playing rock and roll music at the time. I even thought jazz was kind of boring. Unbelievable. Now I'm more of a jazz drummer than anything. In fact, people are like asking me, do you want to be in this rock band? But you're not really a rock player, you're a jazz player. I don't want to be pegged as being any kind of player, really. I just want to play music. But I really thought that this was important for me to say, because it's very similar to this. So when you give the students the choice to learn their own songs, they're invested. They're going to want to spend more time on it. And then you give them the instruments or whatever, the tools that they're going to are they going to either sing or play? I don't know. It's all whatever the parameters of the assignment is. So the students have to wrestle and collaborate with each other. If you break them off into the groups, if you into 4 or 5 in a group, and you say, all right, what song do you want to choose that song, and figure it out. How are you going to learn it? They have to problem solve. They have to talk to each other. They have to start developing their oral skills, but there's no map for them to do that. They have to come up with words they're not particularly music content vocabulary, but they're discussing the theoretical, they're talking form in their own language. They're talking, how many times do we got to play this part before the words come in? What do we, they got to figure out, well, what fret on the guitar or what note on the piano has got the same sound. They're gonna be talking about things like that for a long time, especially if they're non-music learners. They're gonna have a lot bigger learning curve on how to hear, and how to copy and reproduce those sounds, especially with those instruments. But I guess, with the teacher floating around the room, and that's kind of all starting to get developed right into the curriculum. I'm sure there's a lot of teachable moments could come up with a lot of these discussions and these when you bump your heads together. How are you going to do this? Well, let's talk about it. Let's write things down. So, one of the things when I watched that Musical Futures video, it was that short 6-minute clip of some of the students were saying that it really helped them with their expression. Some of them students were saying they couldn't live without music at that point. When they have that much investment in it. And they say it's not driven by curriculum or content, but it is the underpinning of music education. It draws on passion, motivation, enthusiasm, and performing and listening. And so Lucy Green really amazed me by how much she had done with her research, and not only that, but she has the examples, the video examples, and all the of the students' journeys from when they began to when they ended, which is very, very, very useful. And you can see those real-world skills just coming out as far as the technology. They're recording on digital devices, and which brings me to the issue of, one of the prompts on the vlog is, what are some of the caveats of this type of way? Any drawbacks? And I can think of a couple. So what happens when your school doesn't have enough quality equipment for 30 of your students that you have in your classroom? What are you going to do? If you don't have quality instruments for everybody, what are you going to do? I think I had that situation in an 8th grade classroom this year. I taught general music this year for 8th grade, and I had nothing in the room. I was a choir teacher this year. I mean, I had all the choir music I could possibly want or need, but like I had an empty classroom, I had a piano in the room, and I had choir risers. I didn't have electric guitars. I didn't have drums. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any computers for every student. I didn't have a MIDI lab. I didn't have any of that stuff. So how would I do this? How would I start? I mean, what I did do was I went to the elementary classroom in the same, I didn't teach elementary, so I asked, I got resources from wherever I could to give the students what I needed to, but, something you might want to have to build for several years or so. You might have to buy certain instruments that whatever your budget can afford and just keep building that up. I don't know. I mean, I would really love to work with a MIDI lab where I could get kids to, record themselves on software, but there's things to do. I mean, there's Audacity. That's a free program that you can use on a PC or a laptop. I mean, a lot of the technology now is going towards Chromebooks, so I'm not, you got to be, now as one of the drawbacks for this stuff is you really got to be up on your technology and what you can use for your recordings, for what are they going to be listening to? Is everybody going to have, what happens if everybody in the class, you got 30 students, you can't break them off into 5 at a time. You got 30 of them in your room, there's only one teacher. So everyone's got to be equipped with headphones or else it's going to be crazy. It's going to be so much noise, or you're going to have to, one of the drawbacks is you got, 5 or 6 different groups having a cacophony of different noise, one in all the different corners, which can be pretty crazy, I don't know, it might be distracting to the learning. So I would like to talk a little bit about the Free to Be Musical. So, Free to Be Musical, and I think with even the informal, even all of this stuff here that I was talking about before with Lucy Green and the musical futures. So, when Free to Be Musical, it starts off by saying, all right, be free. Everybody gets an instrument, and everybody can just see what it does. And yeah, it says it's going to be chaotic, of course, and I've done stuff like that too, so I know, yeah, it gets pretty noisy, and the kids love it, though. The kids love being chaotic and making noise. I mean, when they have that instrument in their hands, whatever it is. But that's exercise 1. Start off, what does this instrument do? It's the discovery phase, the exploratory. It's important. But it jumps right from be free to the blues. Which, and I love the blues. I'm not seeing a blues band tonight because I'm here doing my vlog, making sure I get it done. But I love that music. It's got a historical context to this country with slavery and sharecropping, and it's an ingredient to jazz, and I think it's an important form. But okay, so you have a music class that you've just done Be Free with, and then you jump to the blues, but how are the students going to know that blues scale right away? I mean, there is a certain level of prior knowledge that I think needs to happen with a lot of these concepts, and I know a classroom, it happens over a course of time. You meet your students in September, you work with them throughout the year, so I mean, you do things in steps. A little bit at a time, but as far as even informal learning, I think there still has to be so much scaffolding and so much guidance that I feel like the informal learning actually is formal learning. I mean, it's part of the whole. I mean, if you're gonna teach the blues and you want them to know their progressions, do the students that have their guitars, do they know how to make the chords, or do we have to spend a class time teaching that? I mean, so there's all kinds of things you're going to have to take aside and teach them their prior knowledge before you can get going with the letting them loose and being free with the blues, because in order to be free with the blues you got to know the form. And that takes a lesson. No one's going to just walk in your classroom and know, okay, I'm going to do 4 measures of of B flat, and then we're going to do 2 measures of E flat, and we're going to go back to B flat for another 2 measures, and nobody's going to know that there's the 12-bar blues formula. You got to teach that to them. They got to, it takes time. They're not going to get that on day one. Not in middle school, not if they don't know how to play a guitar or piano. You could show them one note, but it's still, this informal learning can be like the building blocks of several different, individual lesson plans, which I think is all right. I definitely have spent a lot of time in my classroom with the blues, and I plan on doing it a lot more, especially, in this context of musical futures. I'm really excited about that. I definitely want to go in that direction, because I believe that more improvisation and more creativity is where we need to be. I still think that there needs to be a big focus on the music listening and the oral skills, and I really still believe that in order to draw more of the expression from the students, the more exposure to the different musics afterwards, bring them in with their choices. I always do. I even think it's funny they were talking about how all this stuff was in London, and they were talking about, well, popular music in London mostly was the Beatles and Queen. And just in my spring concerts, I had a tune programmed in the middle school with the Beatles, and in the high school with Queen. It's amazing. And the students actually picked both of them tunes. I did not choose those. The students chose them themselves. So interesting connection there. So anyway, I believe that I will be signing off on this second vlog. I have enjoyed making it. I will definitely, I have not, looked at all 200 pages of the musical futures, and I've, so there's a lot more to go through. There's a lot more to sift and look at, and I'm looking forward to it. But I do believe that just as well, even with the informal learning, it's just you still need to teach some certain things that they're just, the prior stuff. They're going to have to know that. All right, well, thanks. We'll see you. Bye-bye.